System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city left.
This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Today is Monday, March 24th. I am Amin TMK. That man over there who's thirsty and take a little sip.
Water.
It's Emoja, a little tanky Sumler. Hello, happy Monday to all. Happy Monday to you, Emoja. Hello, how are you?
Hello and happy happies.
Happy happies. Let's jump into some geopolitics. I wanted to talk about this today because I feel like it's sort of just like the underlying issue for so many issues in the world right now. And that is Gaza, and that is the continuing siege and G-side on Gaza that, we had don't call it a ceasefire, where there were still military operations being taken place, but it was subsiding. Now it looks as if Israel, and you can hear the rhetoric from Netanyahu and other officials just ramping up again. You know, it kind of goes to this whole thing that Trump was talking about with his super weird AI video, about Trump Gaza, the most insane unreality that we can face in society. We're dealing with this all the time. So I'm gonna throw some things out there, and I just either, I want you to go in further in depth, or at least, just react to it. There's a couple things here. Number one, official death toll. The death count in Gaza is over 50,000 now. We believe it could be higher than that. We've heard reports as high as 300,000, but that's the official 50K. There is more and more information coming out about the sexual violence that Israelis committed against Palestinians. We heard this all the time, October 7th, and, they were cutting people's breasts off and throwing them in the street and on really, ridiculous claims that were never backed up, including Haaretz, who is the, I guess sort of liberal-leaning, left-leaning newspaper in Israel, kind of debunked. And there's a recording out that's saying that the Israelis are executing minors, which we know about. Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, I think everyone knows, is saying that, the IDF should be able to bomb any home regardless of intel, just anytime they want. And two of the more prominent journalists left in Gaza also have been killed. It's a lot that I threw at you, but I just wanted to get some more information from you and your thoughts on those things.
Yeah, so these journalists are people that are working ostensibly for Al Jazeera, right? And it's this weird little dance that Al Jazeera has continued to do, where they silently, or not even silently, cheer on the fall of Assad and these HTS people that all have, let's say, checkered backgrounds, right? Meanwhile...
Chopper backgrounds.
Right? Meanwhile, they try to have some type of mealy mouth... but let's be honest, those reporters that are there they do care, regardless as to what Al Jazeera cares about. And those people are literally dying. You know what I'm saying? And we've talked on this show many times about how many journalists have died out in the field, how the only Western journalists are the ones that are embedded with the Israelis, right? Which, no matter how you feel about this one way or the other, you have to acknowledge that if those parties are not even allowed to go to the Gaza, how is it possible for them to have any type of an unbiased opinion? The other thing is, you brought up the videos, and I keep hearing about this. They say Trump has seen these videos. Witkoff has seen these videos. I think even Marco Rubio claimed to have seen these videos. The thing is, when you're talking about statecraft, nothing is sacred. Just because you claim these guys are your allies don't mean they won't run an op, doesn't mean they won't run a play. You know what I'm saying? And I question often the intelligence, especially for a lot of these older people, to be able to look at deep fakes and know what is real and what is not, especially when Israel is one of the preeminent leaders in information warfare and propaganda. Their Hasbara is some of the best in the world. It doesn't look great next to American standards because nothing does. Even Putin said that. Like, how the hell am I getting into a propaganda war with the United States of America? It can't be done.
They're not a fascist state. Yeah, I mean, they're not a fascist state where everything is completely controlled.
Right.
Vladimir Putin has to answer questions sometimes for hours on end.
Yeah, not just from Russian journalists, It be all kinds of EU journalists up in the press conferences asking the wildest shit. There's no way. I mean, RT can't even get a press pass in the United States of America. So, you know what I'm saying? I mean, but that's a whole nother thing, And so I'm saying is like, it's hard to believe what is real and what is not real when it comes to what the American politicians say. Maybe they really do believe this, but it's hard to give them the benefit of the doubt when almost everyone in this administration is a hardcore Zionist, admitted Zionist. I mean, to the point whereas you had a guy who was doing part of the negotiation to keep the ceasefire alive, right, on the American side, who spoke to a member of Hamas, went on CNN and said, I'm not here to do the Israelis' bidding. I have to do what's best for the interest of the United States of America. And that guy's gone in 48 hours, kicked the fuck out. You know what I'm saying? So, like, that's a guy who I could say might not have been a Zionist. And look what happened to him. And that's why, I try to give the benefit of the doubt because I don't know all these people, but I know a lot of these people and I know what their stated goals are. And it's openly Zionist. So that already brings into the question confirmation bias. If you like someone and they tell you something, you're more inclined to want to believe it. If you don't like someone and they tell you something, you're more inclined not to believe it. This is a psychological phenomenon that no one is immune to. And that's me giving the best possible read to these American politicians. But again, the most likely probability is this is just what they believe too. They want to believe it, or they know it's a lie and they don't care because it still furthers the American project in the Middle East. We didn't create this lie, but we'll help you tell it. We know it's not true. I mean, so like you have to consider all of those possibilities. I've thought about this a lot with Biden. I mean, what in the fuck is he going to know about what's real and what's not? This is a person who already was losing his, let's be honest, he was losing his mind.
And we need to talk about that with Trump too.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Trump is what, 2 years younger than Biden? Right. I mean, I get that he looks unhinged sometimes. I mean,
yeah, I mean, this is a guy that can't pronounce Tesla. These Teslers, right? How in the hell am I supposed to trust that this man can look at a video and know what's a movie and what's not a movie? You know what I'm saying? So there's that. I want to say this one more thing about Gaza, though, because this bothers me. This is something I see a lot in this discourse, even in America with quote unquote leftists, but are really liberals. This whole talk about who can and who cannot govern Gaza, that conversation has to be deaded immediately. You cannot claim to be for democracy, but you're against the rule of the people by the people's choice. I mean, hell, I'm a communist. I want to see all power to the people anyway. But at the very least, I'd like to see the people's voice represented in their government. And this is a conversation I've heard by far too many people, up to and including Israel Sisi, right? Which, of course, we can imagine why Sisi don't want to see nobody talking about no fucking elections anyway, right? Talking about the Gazans have lost the ability to govern themselves. What the fuck kind of talk is that? Like, you don't get to determine for Gaza what their leadership is going to look like. If they vote in someone that you don't like, if you claim to be pro-democracy, you just got to suck that fucking up. Suck it the fuck up. This is the will of the people. I assume the Gazans know more about what they need from their governance than anybody not in Gaza. And that's just something that people need to own. Like, and when you start talking about that as a non-starter, that they have to give up self-governance, well, then that means you're already ceding the authority of everything. You know what I'm saying? And believe me, resistance becomes that. That's going to be the first thing that's criminalized. Well, these guys are protesting and it was they're in Israel right now. They'll put you in jail for liking posts. You know what I'm saying? That they feel like are written by the wrong people whose names show up in a list. everybody's name is going to magically show up on these fucking lists when Gazans lose control of the ability to pick their own government. And so that's something that nobody on the left needs to be talking about in a negative way. For good or for bad, the Gazans must always be able to pick who their leaders will be, who represents them, who's able to speak for them.
Yeah, and if you don't understand causality, and you don't understand why they voted Hamas in the first place.
Because that's the underlying thing that people continue to forget. Hamas was voted into office by the Palestinian people in the last election that they were able to have. You know, the Americans ran the election with the Israelis, believing that the Palestinian Authority would sweep everywhere, and they fucking lost. And they haven't allowed the Palestinians to have an election since then. Especially in the West Bank, because they're terrified of having it happen again. The Palestinian Authority has so little pull on the Palestinian street. They're seen mostly as sympathizers, collaborators, sellouts.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, and it goes back to this whole idea of democracy. Like democracies can be skewed. They can be rigged. They can, or not, even if they're not rigged. I mean, you can have, like you said, the propaganda can be that intense. I mean, there are so many reasons why, elections, if not free and fair in the true regard, can lead to, lots of outcomes. We've heard that Benjamin Netanyahu was interested in having Hamas as, a partner in Gazan government, simply because he knew it was going to give them some sort of casus belli to do the things that they're doing now. And, if you look at it like that, and you look at kind of this idea that the Israelis were hoping and waiting for an October 7th, let's not forget, and I just want to say this, I feel like there's enough evidence to suggest this. I want to say more Israelis were killed by Israelis than were by Palestinians on October 7th. There is a significant, not just the Nova Festival, but the Hannibal Directive.
That's any real
it's not
debate
controversial at this point, right?
And here's how you know. Netanyahu's government has forbidden any type of official inquiry into that until the cessation of the war, which is another reason why he is incentivized to continue this war forever. The longer the war goes on, the more time that goes by, the harder it is to disprove anything that is the government's official stance. The government's official stance was Hamas did it all. You know what I'm saying? I mean, 4 years from now, imagine if you had to leave a crime scene undisturbed for 4 years. I mean, it's going to be so, right? And that's the whole point of it all. And how you know what you said is probably true, the person that's hinted at it the most was Yoav Gallant. Also also with warrants, you know what I'm saying? So it's not like this is a man that's scot-free. When Netanyahu threw him under the bus, he like, well, let's talk about the shit. You know what I'm saying? This isn't what a mean TMK is saying and what Lil Tanky is saying. This is what Yoav Gallant said. I feel like it's a very strong preponderance of assumption that we can easily assume that the Israelis killed at least as many people on October 7th, if not more.
Yeah. And, I think it goes back to this point of, like, if you don't understand causality, you don't understand why we're here, if you're just going back and forth on official government statements, then you're going to be completely lost here. The fact of the matter is children are dying. They're being exploded. People, young people with you've seen the images. If you're paying attention, you've seen the images and you know what's there. Not like you said, first of all, Benjamin Netanyahu had issues with the Israeli government before October 7th.
There were protests all throughout the streets.
Under investigation.
Huge protest.
They talk
in
about
Israel
civil war
happening right now.
Yeah,
exactly. Because they know a lot of the people who have hostages that are unaccounted for already know it is in Netanyahu's best interest that these people are never found alive. And everyone that comes back, for everyone that's out there giving a propaganda story about, oh, look at what they done me, you got other ones that are like, the next time you see me in Gaza, I'll be fighting at your side, because their whole lives have been changed because they've been forced to have empathy for the people that they've colonized and occupied their entire lives. And people are just going to say, oh, they're Stockholmed. And you don't have to fucking Stockholm me. If I'm under this building, you got a pretty good idea I'm fucking here, and you ain't got no problem dropping fucking bombs on this building. It's probably gonna make me mad. Gonna make me feel like.
Here's the thing about Stockholm syndrome: it's not proven to be a thing. So I really like. Again, pseudoscience is not what we do here. We're about facts. We're about receipts. And if I see the truth, I guess that's a cliche, but if my eyes are opened to a larger amount of information, we always say this.
Fucking apologize.
Exactly. When you are given new information, you should create new ideas and new opinions. And I think that's what people are doing, especially when the Israeli propaganda is so over the top. America's got every brand of propaganda, like you were mentioning earlier with Vladimir Putin talking about why on earth would I try to engage in a propaganda war with the United States? Well, Israeli propaganda isn't as good. And, when you are, going through sort of just the general public, I'm not talking about people who are political, that most people are talking about free Palestine, even though they're not fully aware of it. And that's because Israel has gone full fascist state. And this is what
they don't
countries are doing.
It's like when we talk about the generational divide, how like the younger generations are so much more adept at technology than the older generations. Being an American, like we're so inanely keyed into how to make good propaganda that when we're watching mid-ass propaganda, you're like, oh, here's where it goes wrong. Look, the Israelis, Hasbara, which is like the term for their propaganda machine, messaging, S-class. Maybe the best. And almost as good as American. But that's it. Because where it goes wrong is everything after that. Videos, them shits be some B- productions, man. Oh, look, we found the tunnel where the Hamas guys was, and they got the picture of Mein Kampf. Like, as Americans, we're like, this, what the fuck?
We come from a world.
In English? Come on, man.
We come from a world where if a black person is arrested, you just sprinkle a little crack on them.
Right. I mean, a cop in Baltimore makes more compelling fucking evidence, okay, than these secret fucking crack soldiers that are they're just not good at this shit. Not by American standards.
And when they are taking videos that are viral that many people see, it's of the most depraved. It's the most depraved stuff you've ever seen. It's like them rifling through like a woman's lingerie in their house, or
dancing
they're wearing
panties and shit,
wearing blackface and just using the most racist sort of.
You try to create all of this empathy for the Israeli women, and you got videos of them, doing the same shit. The reports are coming out. They were the ones who were mostly in charge of these interrogations that were also often deemed by the United Nations, by the way, to be forms of sexual violence. Mostly Israeli women were in control. And so, like, when you compare that with the messaging, the women, they had their breasts cut off and they were ripped, and it's completely it counters to what the actual evidence is. It's not, in fact, that these women were victims, but they are, in fact, victimizers to Palestinians, men and women. And the soldiers are no better, It's not like, this is just what the macho Israeli men are doing. No, this is something that is rampant, and you see it. And who tells on them? Themselves. They put all this shit out on TikTok.
Because they want social currency for their friends and their families and their communities who look at this type of stuff and applaud it and laugh at it and say, those evil brown Palestinians, those brown and black Palestinians, they are evil. And it goes back to our point of the hostages coming out like, wait a minute, these are not barbaric savages at the gates.
Shakron. I thought she fell in love, man. I was like, is Shakron this nigga's name?
You don't want to look. Palestinian men are, as you know, quite handsome. They're quite handsome, and they're quite charming. They're very charming as well. So I can understand.
Her ass, though. 48 hours later, she was like, and they wouldn't even share their candy with me. Bitch.
Yeah.
It's motherfucking Twix. You asked and I said no. Now I'm a fucking villain. I'm a villain.
Two for me, none for you. We know this. You don't understand the culture of Twix. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, I do want to kind of switch a little bit, but it just goes back to a horrific G-side that we are seeing again in front of us. And it is affecting every aspect of global society. And there is no way around it. The United States and Israel are at the forefront of this. And if you are unwilling to accept, that America is the bad guy, we're not going to really find a solution here. And let's just keep on that theme, because one of the poorest nations in the Middle East, if not the poorest, had the biggest humanitarian crisis before the G-side in Palestine, and that is Yemen. We talked about this last episode, but again, Yemen is doing the work of what you would expect these other more advanced, more developed Middle Eastern militaries would do. They fired another missile into Israel. This was yesterday. And, it's not like it's doing a lot of damage, but it is still there, I don't want to say messaging, but sort of saying like, we're not going anywhere and it's not safe for you. And, they have been, again, shutting down the waterways, in the Red Sea to blockade these shipments and things to Israel, because even before this huge bombardment and the siege was revamped again, there was no food or water or supplies getting into Gaza. There was no, medical professionals that were able to come in here. And we see again, Yemen possibly, and we've heard several military experts say this, they are worried about an aircraft carrier getting hit and possibly sunk. Well, we already seen that they've been hit. There's a lot of evidence out there. We talked about, was it the F-18 that
was destroyed? It's up in the air. Who did it?
Who done it? I don't know. Done it? Maybe I did it. I shot it down by mistake. Whoopsie daisy.
That's the official story right now is the Americans did it. They shot their own. That's the best. I mean, maybe it's true.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. Who knows? We don't know. But we can say that usually everything the United States, Department of Defense says needs to be taken with a grain of salt.
So one thing that's going on with this entire thing, right, is making money off the losses. That's the American way. They have utilized this tragedy that's happening with Yemen, as you said, one of the most under-resourced nations in the world, as an opportunity to sell air defense. So just recently, the United States approved the sale to Saudis of 2,000 laser-guided advanced precision kill weapons. It's called the APKWs. You know what I'm saying? And they're used for air-to-air defense. They're saying one of the missiles that the Houthis fired was destroyed in Saudi airspace. So like you put the pieces together, right? And it's like, so one, even though they may possibly lose a naval vessel, why in the fuck does an American contractor care about that? They'll just have the opportunity to sell another one to the United States Navy. Meanwhile, they're selling all of these weapon systems to all of these countries between, the Saudis, between Yemen and Israel, because then what happens is you're still bolstering their sales and you're using those countries as a shield, as a literal missile shield. So they're expending, no one's even firing in Saudi Arabia, and theoretically they're supposed to be at a ceasefire with Yemen. But instead, they're firing their anti-aircraft, their anti-air missiles If by some miracle it gets past there, now Jordan has to fire their anti-air missiles, before Israel even has to fire a shot. It's also being patrolled. The airspace is being patrolled by not one, but two, as you said, aircraft carriers that are now in the area. I mean, that is an incredible amount of resources that are on the board to protect Israel. And you just cannot explain this. Israel is not, has never been openly stated to be why it's key to America's national security posture, right? To the point where it's capitalizing resources because you don't have, as we've said on the show many times, it's not two aircraft carriers, okay? It's not like fucking Star Trek where it's the Enterprise and then the fucking Defiant shows up. No. These kind of vessels have huge support trains that go along with them. An aircraft carrier has 10, 20 other fucking ships that have to travel with it everywhere it goes. So if you're talking about two aircraft carriers, you're talking about an incredibly dense Red Sea, right now, or the Indian Ocean, wherever they might have them stationed. That's just an incredible, and so it creates a target of opportunity that wouldn't even otherwise be there. And the hope is that American technology is superior, that they can continue to play this game because it's Russian roulette. Right now they're winning, but it's like what the IRA told Margaret Thatcher. We got to be right every day. We got to be right once. And that's kind of the math that the Houthi are playing. Sooner or later, a ship will sink. And I think
offense is always cheaper, right?
Offense is always cheaper. And that's why they're continuing to bomb. And, and the Americans claim to have killed several of the Ansar Allah leaders over the past 48 hours. Again, a claim that's disputed, but in this kind of stuff, no one ever knows and everyone lies. The Houthis are lying a little bit. The Americans are lying because the truth is never flattering.
You have to posture. Yeah.
You have to posture. You watch this in MMA all the time. Somebody get a head kick to the face and they grinning. It didn't hurt. Bitch, why you grinning? You wasn't grinning 5 minutes ago. Yeah, this shit hurt. Right? But war is even more so. I think about when the Israelis launched this huge attack on Iran, maybe 5 or 6 months ago. And they're out telling, we knocked out their whole air defense. Then why didn't you deliver the fucking payload? Why didn't you go all the way? There's no way that an intelligent person believes you did this and then just left it at that. Because that's like, we went to this person's house and we disabled their alarm system. And then you ain't robbed their ass? Like, that was the point, right?
There was no benefit to what you did. You trying to flex. It's just a flex. They want to flex and they want to stunt. And that's...
So, it's all lies. It's all lies, but someone's lying more. But it's not... Some lies you can't get away with. You can get an aircraft carrier hit, sure. Sail that bitch out, get it repaired, bring it back. You might can lie about what happened, what didn't happen. An aircraft carrier gets sunk, that's going to be somebody's ass. And it's not inconceivable. This is what Admiral Westmoreland was telling George W. Bush back in the Persian Gulf War II, the second Iraq War, right? Like, I don't want to go to war with Iran because it means all these aircraft carriers in the Persian Gulf, and sooner or later, the Navy will lose. And he fired his ass. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so, you're talking about this is an admiral, yo. This ain't like a captain. This is a really high-level dude. This was Petraeus' boss, just to show you how high-level this dude was. And then Petraeus got on because of that, because he was the kind of dude that was a yes boss ass. Whatever you say, President, I can make it happen, whether or not it was true, But you're playing with the same math, in the Red Sea. They just don't think that the Yemenis have that capacity. They think the American tech has such a quantitative and qualitative advantage that it can't be overcome. Maybe they're right. So far, they've been mostly right.
Here's what I go back to every time. It seems like the Houthis are hitting military targets. It seems like that's their number one goal.
But they've sunk nothing. They have not sunk an American...
Right.
Vessel of war. I mean, we have to be honest. I mean, believe me, that would be all over everything. That wouldn't be so...
But they have hit. They have hit.
They are presumed to have hit.
We think.
It's highly probable
it's highly likely.
Hit. Yeah.
But it's military targets. You
Right.
know? And what does Israel hit? What do the United States hit?
Exactly.
What does Ukraine hit? What are you seeing? They hit civilian targets because
100%.
they're terrorists. It's the age of terror. You know, when all the
Global
terrorism
war.
conversation yeah, but it was you the whole time.
Right.
Look in the mirror. Anyway, okay, let's give a shout out to our podcast listeners. We're available everywhere you find podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, all those things. We have a Patreon, and it's popping, guys. It's going on. We got community. We got discussions happening. But I want to give a shout out to our active paid listeners. Let's give it up for Jay, Turn Leftist, Andrew, Hobgood, Gata S. She made sure to let me know, like, it's Gata. Thank you for that. Luke H, Jay Letts, Incognigrita, History Will Absolve Me, Sophia Sam Marco, Kate Sauer, Monica Marcel, Lori Joelle, Nikki Enfield, Nat the Rat, Lucy Newman, Samantha Guerrero, Dumpy, Tom L, WZ22, Jay Gallart, 94, No Ground, RK, Paula Poderosa, LP Piercy, Lauren Bullocks, who's at Top Dennis Amadeus, y'all the real hero. We know now that came from Kevin Durant during his MVP speech. Yes. Thoughts and feelings. Anything we missed, Tanky? Sacha. It's okay, man. We all need to be blessed here or there.
A sneeze is good luck in Jewish mythology, you know what I'm saying? So maybe it's all going to work out. Maybe we're all going to win. I'm rooting for all of y'all. If you're watching, I'm rooting for you. You know what I'm saying? There it is.
Yeah. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We got music out. You can find us at Me and TMK, Lil Tanky, type it in to whatever music platform you utilize. Fables, Foibles, and Other American Sins. Also, you can purchase. You can check it out on innercityleft.com. That is Amoj's a book of poetry. It's lovely.
Sophisticants. They don't know that.
Yeah, we are. We're quite sophisticated.
Just wild brigands, crazy leftists.
Wild brigands. Wow, I love it. For Mojo Lil Tanky Summer, I'm Me and TMK. This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Peace.
System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' Inner City Left.